Welcome. Episode 2 of Season 2. Joined again by Barrick, and we might be joined by some of the other guys a little later. We're not sure. Everybody's still trying to get in the groove of a few things and all of that, but we'll see if anybody else can join us here a little bit later. But definitely happy to be with you nonetheless, and chatting a little baseball. And we're a little late this week, but I think it'll still be fun to bring you an episode. And we got some fun and exciting baseball news coming up for this podcast in particular. I think there's a series that we're going to talk about that's going to happen this weekend, so we'll see. But yeah, you rocking the Wake Forest hoodie today, huh?
Yeah, we're just it's in the rotation. So they're having a great baseball year for anybody that's following the ACC baseball. Unfortunately, my Virginia Tech Hokies took a step back for sure this year, but it's been a fun year. It's been got some teams that are traditionally really good that aren't, and vice versa. So the ACC tournament should be a lot of fun coming up.
Yeah, which it's also hard to believe that that's already the time of the year that we're at. And
I know. I was looking at the schedule and I was like, oh, yeah, baseball it's almost over.
Yeah. It's always that hard transition with MLB and college because they start so differently. And then all of a sudden, you're like MLB, we're just getting started first month of the season. And then, college is like, oh, we're getting ready to hit the playoffs. So
yeah, you forget that, like, especially in places like Virginia Tech and places that are north, like they start playing when it's snowing. So right. Yeah, so you gotta start early, but
yeah, absolutely. So, oh man. Well, as always, we'll kick off. Just remind everybody, if you want to submit anything to us, obviously here live on the podcast, feel free to use the chat. Definitely interact with you there. But also feel free to send us an email. We'll chat about anything there. Contact at first23rdpod.com. Again, that's contact and then first, the number 2, the word third, and then pod.com. So
anyone that sends in a halfway decent email will get a reply with a random picture of an extremely adorable dog. So I'm just, we're sweetening the pot.
That's right. Sweeten it up. Love it. And then I would also just be remiss, at the time of this recording, it is May 4th. So we must say May the 4th be with you and your family. So, that's been obviously the big running joke of the day. And any marketing campaigns that are out there, all of a sudden everybody in the world is a Star Wars fan. So, just par for the course today, I think. So
yeah, just totally unrelated, but bringing lightsabers into medical facilities, they don't appreciate that. Completely unrelated though.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of back like when COVID and all that stuff was like real in the thick of it, and all of a sudden people were like wearing masks and all kinds of stuff in banks and different places, and it's like you could have never have done that 15 years ago. Like you would have been immediately escorted outside. Like
this is bad news.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, anyway, like I said, just had to have a little fun there. I will give a shout out tonight for this evening's beverage, Barrick, for a little taste of home for you. We got a little Noda Brewing Company Cheerwine Ale. He got so excited the camera jumped in on him there. So
wow.
So
I'm skewing back.
Yeah. So cheers to the Cheerwine Ale.
Wait, so did you just get that in the grocery store or what? Like
Yeah. So Noda is a brewery down in Charlotte. This is a collab that they did, Cheerwine Ale, and it is delicious. So if you like Cheerwine, very good. Maybe I'll have to figure out maybe some what the laws are on terms of mailing. I can maybe get a pack mailed up to you. So
I wouldn't be against that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, not a sponsor. If they want to be, they can. But just
please,
a free shout out to the Noda Brewing Company and the Cheerwine Ale this evening. So.
Yeah, just Cheerwine in general. Just what a great creation.
Yeah, North Carolina, home and bred. Love it.
Mm.
Baseball, Cheerwine, Krispy Kreme.
Really, what else do you need? maybe a little insulin, but that's okay.
Yeah, this podcast is now brought to you by insulin. We're going to talk to you today about insulin resistance and diabetes.
And how to get it.
That's also a little nod to Robbie there. Hopefully he'll be able to join us soon. So
Maybe not anymore.
that's funny. That's funny. Oh, all right. Well, last week, season one, we kicked off kind of just essentially a little round out of the first month of the season. We chatted about some surprises that we saw, both that we felt, and talked about the Braves a little bit, where they were headed, the Orioles having a strong start to the season, which is great to see. So we'll kind of just, I think, jump right in there. Like it always, we have a conversation last week of, are the Braves cooling off? And now they've kind of rattled off a little win streak here, like we always expect them to. But yeah, they've looked real good. Sorry, I was trying to pull this up real quick. Just capped off this evening a sweep of the Marlins. So that gives them a nice little 3-game win streak. Offense looked great. Pitching staff looked great. And overall, I think a pretty solid series. Yesterday, 7 home runs in a game. That's pretty stout. Controversially, Marcell Ozuna hits a grand slam in the second inning. He is an interesting case for the Braves.
You want to talk about streaking and hot and cold?
Yeah. Braves fans definitely over him. And again, right, wrong, or indifferent. He's had his past. He's made his choices. But the Braves fans, for the most part, honestly, in history, have really given players a benefit of the doubt. So it's a little weird for me, honestly, having a player on the team that literally every time he comes up to the plate and gets out, he gets booed. So,
but isn't it? I would say you talked about he does have his his past or whatever, but like really, if you just keep it on the baseball diamond, just on his production, I mean, I don't know if he deserves to be booed every time, but yeah, it's just we talked about last week how he's kind of that's one of their weakest spots on the team. So I mean, absolutely. You don't even really have to go into his past or his off the field stuff. Just say just strictly on the field, we could probably use an upgrade at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to see. Let's see if I can get this pulled up here. All players. Let's see. Yeah, so Marcell Ozuna so far has had 72 plate appearances. He's gotten the batting average up. Last week he was sub 100. He's now hitting a 153. But he has hit 5 home runs this year, which is kind of sneaky, honestly. And he's got 8 RBIs. He struck out 20 times though, so that's not great. So, again, he's made his choices. He's on the team. It kind of is what it is. Obviously, we're not in control of that. So, if he can figure out primarily playing DH and being productive, I mean, it is what it is. But here's, again, not to kind of get into a controversial topic here right off the bat in the episode, but you look at a guy
throwing strikes, boys.
Yeah, you look at a guy like this who was convicted of a couple of these offenses that he's had, and he's still playing with a team and playing pretty consistently. And then you look at the Trevor Bauer situation where he wasn't no charges were ever brought. And again, we've said plenty of times on this podcast, we don't necessarily condone the actions that he made, but at the same time, the court did not find that he had done anything illegal in that regard. And so it's just very fascinating how differently that's being treated and looked at. And again, we talked about in the offseason how it's wild that a team did not sign Bauer for a league minimum, $650 contract. So I don't know what's going to happen.
I literally was just like, I thought that was a slam dunk that he was picked up by somebody. And, again, it is interesting how those things are treated. I mean, there are a lot of factors that go into it, but when you compare it, it's just like, man, so Trevor Bauer, who made a mistake, but wasn't a legal one, and now he's basically shipped off to Siberia when you got guys in the league that have made multiple mistakes that are legal stuff, and the team's just like, we'll keep them. Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all. But I guess chalk that one up to when does life ever make sense? But
Yeah. Well, and I think that just goes to show you, like, the MLB really tried to make Trevor a like legitimate scapegoat in that whole
and
deal
does
too.
that ever work? Like I know I heard like people talking about like, yeah, you want to make an example. Does that ever work? Because I mean, I can't think of one time in sports where somebody did something bad. Like the one that came to mind was the Ray Rice thing a while back.
Yeah.
And everybody, I mean, that was a huge deal, and it became a bit. And he was pretty much kicked out of the league.
Yeah.
Guess what? People are still. Greg Hardy was after that. I mean, people still do
Sure.
like these ridiculous things. So I think for if the league was looking at it that way, I think that's a mistake because it just
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Well, and to that point too, like, again, like, it seemed very vindictive in my opinion when they were going
Hmm.
through it, and all that does is then try to sway the public opinion. And if you don't necessarily follow him or follow the Dodgers, then you're obviously going to look at the situation and then be against him. And so all these other teams, fans that were like, well, no, we don't want to sign Trevor Bauer. It's like, well, like, you don't really, like, you don't understand what's been happening. Like, you just have seen headlines and you've
Right.
heard the league try to attack him and all that. And so it's just very fascinating how the league essentially kind of did that to him. And I don't, that's where I just kind of felt like I had a little bit of an issue because,
Yeah.
in my opinion, like, the league obviously needs to be there to facilitate what's going on, but to be as aggressive as they did, I felt like was just a bit much. So,
And I would have
um,
loved to be. I mean, we talk about the Braves and Orioles a lot. I would have loved to be in the Orioles room, when they were talking about this, like a team that needs a
yeah,
pitcher desperately. Um, Sounds like you could have got him pretty cheap. Like I would have loved to been like, what's the discussion here? More, I mean, I think everybody can probably tell that I would have been absolutely happy to have him on the team. But like, just yeah, what's the back and forth conversation? I think that would have been fascinating
yeah.
just to hear. But
I,
we'll
I,
never get that,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I agree. I agree. And, again, on the Braves front for that, Snedeker came out fairly early on and was like, he is absolutely not playing here. And so, again, it was just like fascinating. Um,
Yeah.
so what I'm going to be
It'll be
interested,
his.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say what I'm going to be interested to see. Trevor has talked about on his YouTube channels and social medias about how he has had a dream to play in Japan. And I would say that. I would say he probably didn't want to do it under these circumstances.
No.
I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think that's pretty obvious. So,
Yeah.
um, but at the same time, excuse me, that I think it's one of those things where he, does want to play over there. So where I think it'll be interesting is to see if, again, you start seeing pitching staffs get hurt, like there's injuries involved and there's things like that. Like, would a team try to sign him mid-season? I don't even know if that's allowed when he's over there. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
That's what I was thinking too. Like I think you took it a little bit more extreme than I was going to go, but I was just thinking like just in general, like do we see him back in the league in a year or 2 years, something like that? Like if not, I'll just be
yeah,
not only shocked, but also it would also be kind of sad just because like he is such a good talent
yeah,
and not to really not have seen it. I mean, obviously he wouldn't be the first, great talent not to pan out, if you will, but like it would be a shame if this is the reason that we don't really get to see him full
yeah,
throttle in the league.
yeah. Well, and it's interesting, and again, I don't know the cultural context of this either, but the team in Japan that he's playing for has essentially like welcomed him like wholeheartedly. Like they had like a 3-story billboard put up at a hotel not far from the stadium, and so they've welcomed him. And I saw a clip of this, or I read an article that had a quote from a fan that basically said like, we understand like what he's done in the past, but like that's in the past and he's here playing now, and like if he plays well then that's fine. And so
Yeah, I mean, I'm not tuned into Japanese media, but I haven't
yeah,
heard about any huge protests or like
not at
anything
all.
like that. But
Yeah.
like the other
And
thing I think about too is like that this kind of sort of reminded me of was the Michael Vick kind of thing
mhm,
where he obviously did get in a lot of legal
right,
trouble, was in jail.
yeah,
And then comes back to the or to the Eagles, and yeah, there was a lot of people that didn't like that, and maybe some protests here and there. But all things considered, it was actually a pretty smooth transition. Like him,
yeah,
getting on the team and playing. It's just like, how does that happen in Bowers in Japan? Like,
yeah, Exactly. Yeah. That's a great kind of comparison there. And I think hopefully for him, and to the point of our conversation, hopefully that's the route that hopefully Bauer can eventually find. Is yes, it'll
Yeah.
be tough for the first month of the season or so, but hopefully, he comes in, pitches well, does what he's supposed to do in terms of, being good off the field or whatever, and then can take it from there. So
Well, that's maybe a good place to end it, because I was going to ask you, like, as a kind of final thing on Bauer. He's a big personality, and that was a big part of like his kind
yeah,
of persona before he got into, I don't even want to call it trouble, but just like got in the news.
yeah,
Do you think if he does come back, do you think his personality is different? Do you think he tones it down? Do you think he?
yeah. I don't know if you watch any of his YouTube stuff, but
Yeah.
I've kind of followed it a little bit, and I'll say honestly, no, because I expected him to tone it down going to
Yeah.
Japan, being an
Yeah.
American, and in his first like exhibition pitching outing in their like Japanese minor league team, he did the sword celebration in the first inning, which like floored me because like you just don't typically see that in Japanese baseball.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I was like, I guess he's going to keep it up then, I guess. So to
Because see,
that
yeah,
point,
I could see.
yeah,
I could see it both ways when I was thinking about it, just because on the natural, I think, way to think about it is, oh yeah, you turn it down, you show remorse, that kind of thing, sure. But I could also see, again, if I'm him, I'm probably really mad. Like I'm like, what the? So if I get a chance to, like, a platform, I might be even more, rambunctious a little bit. If I say, yeah, so
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see, like, if he does get back into Major League Baseball, what he brings with him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I the way that I'm seeing it now, I do not see him toning down his personality. I definitely think
Well, and
he's going to
that and
come
that'll
back.
be that'll be fun for the news cycle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, anyway, definitely fun, and it's one of those things where it is what it is. I like you said, I do hope he comes back. He's a really good pitcher. I don't think it's necessarily fair that his career would end. Um, you know, in that way, in terms of MLB baseball. And so, I don't know. We'll see, I guess, just what transpires and what
Yeah.
happens. But anyway, so sorry, didn't mean
We'll
to
be back.
get off on
We'll
that.
be
Yeah,
back later on Trevor Bauer
yeah,
today.
exactly. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean. I don't even. To be honest, I've forgotten completely how we got. Oh, it was the Marcelo Zuna conversation. So
Yep. Yep.
anyway, so yeah, Braves again had a really good week so far. Playing good baseball. I was taking a look at the Braves kind of team hitting stats, and it's honestly, I was a little surprised at a couple of the numbers. One, I did not realize that Ozzy Albies is tied for the team lead in home runs with 9.
Yeah. That's
He,
quiet.
he
Yeah.
is he is having a great year so far.
Yep.
Also, shout out. I was in New York this weekend and had a weird chance sighting with Ozzy. And I'm not going to get into the specifics because I think I would actually disclose too much about some location in New York and all that stuff. But it was cool to see him. Also, he's another prime example of an athlete that is touted as a small player
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
league, but not in real life. So
Yeah.
he is still a solid human being. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Well, I mean, clearly that's why he's playing so well, is because he
absolutely,
got some. Well, he got some of the Scotty Banks juice that just kind of, like,
yeah,
permeated through the air. So yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, he's tied with Matt Olson, 9 home runs on the season. They both have 26 RBIs. Ozzy kind of putting it together a little bit more in terms of average. He's hitting 288 versus Olson's 244. But again, when we got Olson and he came over to the Braves, we weren't really looking for him to be an on-base kind of guy. I mean, we knew, we were hoping he was going to be a 40 homer a year guy. And so 9 home runs through the first, month and a week of the season. I'm happy with that. Also, huge turnaround for Sean Murphy. Started the season out pretty cold. I think it took him like 7 games to get his first hit. He's now hitting 287 with 8 home runs and 24 RBIs. He has easily now, I think, cemented himself as the catcher behind the plate. obviously it'll be great when Darno comes back from the DL with the concussion issues, and he'll give us the option to platoon, and then also utilize that DH to give Murphy some breaks behind the plate. But again, and then Ronald Acuna, of course, is just on an absolute tear, hitting 355, 6 home runs, 20 RBIs. And he's already got 15 stolen bases. So
yeah, we need to talk about him a little bit.
yeah. So if Acuna, I think, has a real shot and a real opportunity of having a 40-40 season, and that's exciting for baseball. It's super exciting for us as Braves fans in this podcast. That would be a really cool feat. To
I don't
have
know,
him
man.
do
You
that,
think
so.
it can maybe even be better? Like if he keeps up at this pace, it could be even better than that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the nice thing for the Braves, if I'm a Braves fan, it's almost like his season that he's having is almost cherry on the top because. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you follow closer than I do, but I don't feel like the Braves don't feel like the kind of team where it's like, well, we'll go as far as Acuna will take us. They have other guys that can step up and kind of carry the team, if you will. So the fact that he's playing this well, it's almost like you almost don't need it, but it's just like, hey, this is great. Like we got this like little extra, extra cherry, if you will. So it's awesome for him. And I think it's great if you're a Braves fan because you're like, we're getting more than we actually need. I feel like out of him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in. We'll probably talk about it a little bit, but he had that injury scare and sounds like he's okay, dodged the bullet from what I was seeing. But yeah, I mean, if he can keep this going, he's gonna. I mean, what MVP? Possibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now you got to say he's a front runner. I think before the season you would have said he was a front runner. I think now with the season he's having, you have to call him a front runner. So
again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like he had the injury last year, right? Was it last year or was it
2021 is when he got hurt.
All right, so 2021 he got hurt. Last year, I mean, I felt like he didn't quite have the year that everybody was hoping for or expecting. So I think everybody at the beginning of this year was kind of hopeful that he would have a good year, but I don't know if anybody was like 100% sure it was going to happen kind of thing. So I think this has got to be a little bit of a pleasant surprise kind of thing.
No, absolutely. I mean, to your point, I was just going back to look. So he made his debut in 2018, and he played 111 games in that first year. 2019, he played in 156 games and did well. He hit 280, 41 home runs, 101 RBIs, and he had 37 stolen bases. So he was chasing 40-40 that year, and came up with the 3 stolen bases short. But then, of course, everybody had the shortened COVID season in 2020. And then 2021, he tears the ACL, and he's out 82. He only played 82 games that year. And then last year, played 119. So, again, really, even if you factor in the 2020 shortened season, he only played 46 games in 2020. So he's not been healthy, and we need him to be healthy as a team.
Right.
So again, the injury scare that you mentioned, I don't know what the deal is. I mean, it kind of just is what it is. There's some guys that just seem to have a magnet to the baseball sometimes. He does, I think, stand pretty close to the plate, so I think a lot of pitchers do try to bust him in. So, but again, at the same time, like a lot of his opposite field power comes from his ability to get that plate coverage standing where he does. So I don't want to necessarily tell him to back up off the plate, but at the same time, you got to play games to be in it. So I think it's kind of a matter of that. So
as a semi-outsider, and I'm not asking like if you have these numbers on hand. Have you read anything? Like, has anybody put out numbers saying like hits more than the average player or something like that?
I don't know in comparison, but
yeah, because I was wondering if it's like if there's actual numbers saying like, hey, he gets hit a lot, or if it's just like one of those things where just like it feels like he's always getting hit because and not just because like, and it's not that there's necessarily a big difference between the two, except for you would wonder if he's actually physically getting hit more than most players, then there's got to be kind of something to that.
That's fair. So starting in his 2018 season and going through this current year, 2018 he was hit 6 times. 2019, he was hit 9 times. 2020, he was hit 4. 2021, 9. And last year hit 10. And so far this year, 2. So, I mean, to your point, I mean, maybe it's kind of like recency bias. I think the other hard part with him is like he seems to be pretty consistently getting hit in like problem areas like elbows, hands. This last time on Sunday, like square in the shoulder. Honestly, probably an inch from being like drilled in the mouth. I was just glad he got the shoulder where he got it because, you talk about breaking a jaw or something and you're out 8 to 9 weeks all of a sudden. So, I to be honest, like when I saw it, he could, obviously something bad could have happened to the shoulder, but the first thing that went through my mind was like, thank God it didn't hit him in the mouth. Like, thankfully it doesn't seem to be like any issue. He kind of shrugged it off. If I had to imagine, because it looked like it hit pretty square on that shoulder socket, it probably was like a stinger in football where he just probably couldn't move it, and it just took that time, a day to get some of that, circulation and all that stuff back.
Yeah, he could have had some irritation of the nerve. He also, it could have just been bruised. Like he could have just bruised that bone and the muscles around it, and that takes a little bit of time to heal, and that can, especially for these guys who, it's their bodies and their shoulders are so important to what they do. Even though, when we think of like a simple bruise, like that can still throw you off,
Absolutely.
Especially if it's in the right place on the shoulder. So, yeah.
Yeah. So now you've kind of piqued my interest, and I got to see if I can find this. So let's look at 2022. Let's look at all of MLB, and let's see, expanded stats and hit by pitch. So 2022, the league leader in hit by pitch was Mark Canha at 28. So when you look at Acuna getting hit 10 times, the league leader was hit 3 times more than he was. So
what that kind of tells me is like, and it almost feels like maybe it's not the number of times, or maybe he's not necessarily being targeted, but because he's such an important, piece to the team, one hit is going to feel like 3 for somebody that's, maybe
Absolutely.
not as big a part of the team. So
yeah,
it's almost, it maybe just be a more psychological kind of thing, like just for him and the team.
Yeah. So his 10 hit by pitches last year has him tied for 30th in the league, which, that means there's not really much in between. That's not much in between. There's kind of a pretty big group at the top there. Mark Canha had 28. Andres Jimenez had 25. Wilson Contreras had 24. Anthony Rizzo had 23. And then it starts to really taper off there into the mid-teens. That's fascinating. And to your point, does put that a little bit in perspective. But I think what we're talking about in terms of his importance, where he's getting hit, it feels much more significant than, Now, Mark Canha, if he ever does happen to hear this, would probably be like, well, hold the hell up a minute. Like, I got hit 28 freaking times. Like,
so Mark Canha's agent needs to be calling and saying, listen, like, we need hazard pay. Like, like this needs to be in the contract.
Yeah.
Well, so with Acuna though, like, I feel like you mentioned it's the locations that he's getting hit, and obviously I'm guessing here, but I just feel like that's got to be more chance or coincidence than anything. Like it's hard to imagine that, like, he's again being targeted, or like, there's anything he's necessarily doing that's increasing the sensitive locations. It kind of feels like to me that's just unlucky, and which in a way is kind of good, because you would expect that to turn around. You don't expect that to continue forever. So
yeah, I think there is a combination of his batting stance is a little bit odd and unique in the sense of he does hold those hands and arms out a little bit, and so I think sometimes we know as athletes that you get tunnel focused and visioned, and so I think sometimes pitchers can lock in on that part of the zone and they could end up seeing.
Yeah.
But also the scouting report on him is he struggles with the fastball up and in. And so I think sometimes these guys are trying to paint that up and in corner, and obviously it just gets away. And again, the way he's standing with his hands and stuff out, that
That's a
elbows.
good point. Yeah.
So after that first season, when he had all the issues with the Marlins and getting hit in the elbow, he does wear that large elbow pad,
Yeah.
and so I don't think
Yeah.
he's feeling that as much anymore. It still probably doesn't feel great, but at least it's not ball to bone kind of thing that he's having to deal with there. So.
Yeah, and that's smart, obviously, on his part to take those precautions. So
Yeah.
I wonder how long it'll be before like they have batting gloves that have like metal or plates or something like that in them to protect the wrists.
I've kind of thought that for a while too, because you see so many of the guys get hit in the back of that wrist, and
Yeah.
some of the batting glove manufacturers have added pads in that particular part. But what I would imagine is there's so much wrist snap
Yeah.
that you can't have that whole wrist, like it can't be locked up. So
Yeah.
what I think they need to figure out is basically something like a moldable, like almost like a cast type
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah.
still gives you the movement,
Yeah.
but gives you that padding and support to at least.
What it could
deaden
almost be like a hinge kind of thing, like I don't know, it's interesting, but that does seem like something that there could be a use for down the road.
Yeah.
We're patenting that in case somebody makes it. It's ours. It's ours.
I was getting ready to say maybe we need to divert some attention to this topic a little bit in our life. So anyway. So again, the Braves again had a really good week. They had a series in New York against the Mets. 2 of the games got delayed, and they end up taking 2 out of the 3 games that were played. Always great to be able to beat the Mets.
I was gonna say that's kind of like that's a big deal. I mean,
absolutely.
We were talking about the division. It's going to be kind of between those 2. So I know it's still early, but that's not a small thing.
No. Absolutely. And again, we saw last year how much of the head-to-head matchup played into that and ultimately was the deciding factor in who won the division. So, yeah, again, in my opinion, anytime we're playing the division, win 2 out of 3, win the series, move on to your next opponent.
Yep.
So, again, thrilled and happy with that. And then, of course, taking the sweep against the Marlins this week and heading into the weekend. So, any other thoughts on the Braves? Anything you saw or
well, I do have, and I don't know. We can decide if we want to talk about this now or maybe even do like a segment on this sometime. But the City Connect Atlanta jersey, thoughts on it?
I like it a lot. I think they didn't try to go too crazy with like different color schemes and different colors. And I think it's a really cool homage to that 70s, the Hank Aaron, the city vibe, the For the A that everybody. So I'm a big fan. I would love to get my hands on some of that stuff. So I'm going to have to get down to Truist, I think, at some point to try to get my hands on that. But
you can actually go through Fanatics. I was looking at it.
Oh,
but, yeah. But I agree. They did a really good job with that one. I actually think most of the City Connects are pretty awesome. I think most of them did a really good job. But the Atlanta one, it's super clean and super crisp. It's a nice one.
The only thing I will say is while everything I just said about them I love, the one thing that I guess irked me just a little is how resemblant they are to those 1970s jerseys. If you aren't paying attention to logos and stuff like that, you would honestly think they're just wearing a throwback jersey, not necessarily a modern City Connect type thing. Like when you look at like the Padres or the Rockies going with the Avalanche green, that's a very different vibe. So again, it's like I love it. But also at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't look like much thought went into it.
I think a lot of thought went into it. It's just so subtle. It's just like it's so subtle that you almost have to be wearing it to kind of appreciate, the differences and what it looks like.
Yeah.
So the White Sox and the Angels are my 2 favorite. I like the Nationals. The Magnolia one's really nice too. Even though I'm not allowed to say that as an Orioles fan. And can I just say I'm so jealous that Baltimore doesn't have one yet. I guess it's going to be next year maybe, but I was like, come on.
Yeah. I didn't realize at first that they were like slowly releasing the jerseys like that. I thought they were kind of all coming out at the same time. So it's frustrating, but at the same time, I was like, it was worth the wait, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it is frustrating as a fan of a team that doesn't have one, but I do understand why they're doing it because it does kind of keep interest all year long. Like you're just kind of like, okay, what's the next group, if you will,
Yeah,
or however they're doing it. But they've done a really good job. Like there's a lot of them where it's like I'm not even a fan of that team, and I would definitely wear that. Like
yeah, absolutely.
so, yeah,
Well,
I was impressed.
I got good news for you, Barrick. The Orioles are actually slated to get their City Connect jerseys in June of this year.
I'm putting my calendar. I don't usually look forward to June, but we're doing June this year.
Yep. So the Braves led off the year with their City Connect jerseys. Actually, even better, Barrick. They release on May the 26th. So we're in the month.
The guys that are making the jerseys were like, oh, the Orioles are actually good. Let's push this out.
There you go.
Well, same thing. Last on the list for a while. They're like, we'll get to those in like 2030. Fine.
Well, to your point, the Pirates are actually the last team this year after the Orioles, and look at the year they're having. So
it's because they're mad. They're like, you know what, you overlooked us. You didn't roll us out with some of the other ones, and now they're just they're mad. So
there you go. Now, I will say I've always been a huge fan of the Orioles color scheme, and so I'm very interested to see how they're going to incorporate that orange and black and the city of Baltimore in that. And I think they're going to look fire.
I really hope there's some kind of wire reference to the jersey in some way. That would be amazing. But knowing my luck and kind of the Orioles' luck, they're going to come out and it's going to be so disappointing, and I'm just going to be devastated. But we're thinking positive thoughts, so it's not going to happen. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things that they can do. I would imagine it's going to say something like Charm City or something like that, or maybe some reference to the harbor. But there's a lot of things they could do with this, so I'm excited to see what it is.
Yeah. What if they came out like Cincinnati Bengals color rush, like all orange, like head to toe?
Oh, I would love it. I would actually love it. Like let's do it.
I'm saying some orange pants would look pretty sick.
Yeah. I don't understand why they haven't done that, honestly, like the black top, orange bottom, or even the white and orange. Like, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It is kind of interesting in baseball. The pants don't change that much. I don't know if you guys have a reason or answer for that, but football, the pants change all the time with the jersey. Baseball, it's like these are your pants for the year.
It's
Enjoy.
white and gray. Like that's, I don't know. I mean, I agree. Like, I think hopefully once we get through the City Connect, stuff, hopefully the league will let teams get a little bit more creative with like alternate jerseys. Like,
is that what it is? Is it the league that's kind of saying like, hey, like we gotta?
I think so. I think it's like a uniform code kind of thing.
That's a huge mistake by baseball because that's an easy way to get people interested.
100%. One of my favorite like Braves jersey is the red tops they wear on Friday.
Home games.
Like, and so I don't know why they don't do more of that kind of stuff. Like, let's throw some like red tops on some blue pants. Like,
Absolutely. Or again, like an all red would be kind of cool. But like it's, and you can't tell me it's a cost thing. I feel like that's the first thing that people think of is like, come on, they can absolutely make this happen where the teams wear, different. Actually, in the background, basketball does a great job of it. They do a really good job of throughout the year. They'll rotate jerseys, so it's not like a special one night thing. They kind of come back around, and I think basketball probably does the best job. Hockey does a pretty good job too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe we like jerseys and uniforms more than the average person. But I just think it's such a easy way to drum up interest and get excited about it. It's like, oh, what are we going to wear? It's that was one of my complaints with the Carolina Panthers from a football standpoint was that like every Sunday you knew exactly what they were going to wear. There was no intrigue or anything. And that, again, that's just such an easy way to get people kind of interested. So I hope baseball does loosen up those regulations.
Well, and it's a revenue stream too, right? Like, right now, like you're saying, like there's only so many jerseys out there. And so when you buy an Orioles jersey or a Braves jersey, There's no need to go buy another one. And so you start getting into a world where you've got a white home Braves jersey, you've got the red top, you've got the City Connect jersey, and then if they come out, you've got the blue, like away blue alternate jersey that they like. There's so many color combinations and things that you can do, but the more I think MLB can get into that, like you said, between football, basketball, it's like to your point, it can't be a cost thing because that's extra revenue. Now you can go sell that in your team store and drive profits that way. So,
and here's the other thing with baseball, I will die on this mountain. It is the easiest jersey to wear out of all of the sports. It's almost professional looking. You got the button down.
Sure.
If it fits you properly, it's like it actually has a little bit of class to it versus like all the other in basketball. Don't even get me started. You can't wear that. But it's like actually wearable. Like it's one of the few jerseys that you can actually get away with, like not looking like an absolute fool when you go out to the grocery store in it. So. Yeah, I mean, but added to the tab of things that baseball is kind of behind the game on. But
yeah, the only other one that comes to mind that I think you could wear pretty well are hockey.
Yeah, you can get away with it, but I think you have to be careful because it kind of depends. Like I feel like it's like the old school style where it has like the ties. I think that's kind of cool actually. I think that looks good. Some of them they're just like so clunky and they got so many badges and things all over them. But yeah, to me, I mean, you're right. Hockey would be my number 2 for sure, but baseball takes the cake.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, like honestly, like you throw a baseball jersey on with some jeans, you can pretty much. I mean, you're not going to obviously go out to a white tablecloth dinner, but like you can go pretty much anywhere else. Like,
no, you tuck that thing in, you got a dress shirt. What are you talking about? You got a dress shirt, so come on.
Hey, that's a whole new clothing market that we could do. Let's turn some dress shirts into some jerseys and call it a day.
Just don't put a tie on with it. That's the only thing we'll have to warn people to. But yeah, man, I'm telling GQ needs to call us.
Hey, you could wear a tie, but the tie has to have the player's number that you're wearing.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, we're.
So basically, in 43 minutes, we have solved hit by pitches, Trevor Bauer, and fashion. I mean, what else do you guys want from
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. It's on fire. So, all right. Well, we'll hop over to the other team here. Orioles continuing the hot streak, man.
I know.
They round out the week last week, taking 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox. They take 3 out of 4 against the Tigers. And then so far this week, they took 2 out of 3 against the Royals. So really it's the name of the game of what we've been talking about with the Braves of you just keep winning series. And if you take it a series at a time and see what happens. So, I think it's a fun time to be an Orioles fan. So
yeah, the Red Sox series was the big one just because you gotta win those like we talked about in division. Things are about to get really interesting because we'll talk about the Braves a little bit more. That series coming up, and then they've got Tampa, they've got the Yankees, they've got Toronto. So there's a lot of it's about to get a lot harder, and we talked about that last week. How the schedule has admittedly been pretty soft, but they've done what they wanted to do, and I think for this team with again how young they are, I think having an easy stretch like this is great because it gives you a chance to kind of like work out the kinks. It gives you a chance to kind of gel, and I think they've done that really well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, they're gonna even out a little bit. They're gonna come back to earth a little bit, but it is going to be a lot of fun to see what happens when the schedule gets harder because they're going to have to raise their game, and it'll be interesting to see if some of these young guys can do it. But they have a nice mix. They've got some guys with some experience that they can lean on. So I really think they're gonna still be on the right side of the winning column. But it's gonna be cool to see where are they, like kind of get a heat check and see where they really are with some of the good teams. So Jorge Mateo is the one that we got to talk about. We touched on him last week. I think we said he was kind of one of those sneaky guys that maybe is not number one on the team, but he was like kind of starting to play good. The last week he just started going on a tear. He took it to a new level. So he's another guy. We were talking about Acuna, the 40-40. Mateo he has a good chance to set some records with the steals and homers and that kind of thing. So he's going to be an interesting stat guy to watch as the year goes on. And that's assuming that he doesn't get his spot replaced by one of the young guys coming in. But right now
Yeah.
he's doing everything you would want him to do to keep his spot and doing it really well. So it's gonna be fun to see what happens. But yeah, the Orioles they're keeping it hot. So it's gonna playing this series against Atlanta is gonna be so much fun just because again you guys are pretty much the creme de la creme of the top right now. So just seeing what these young guys in Baltimore can do will be a lot of fun. Even if we get swept, I think it'll be just good to kind of get an idea of where are you, where do you stack up against pretty much the number one. So
Yeah.
so it's going to be fun. What is there anything with this series? Again, I know you follow the Orioles passively, but is there anything with the series that any matchups that you're looking for, or any storylines maybe from the Braves side that is it watching Acuna's health? Is it watching the bullpen? What are you interested in?
Yeah, I think it's just the offense. If they can keep
Okay.
being on the path that they're on, that offense we talked preseason. Uh, spots 1 through 9 probably right now, with the exception of when Azuna's in the lineup. Those guys can hit all the way down, and so when that whole offense is and the whole lineup is gelling and rocking at a good pace, it's one of the tougher ones in the league. And so I'm interested to see if that can continue. I haven't looked ahead. I guess I can try to look at that now, just in terms of
Well,
who the probable pitchers and stuff are. But
Well, while you're looking it up, I can tell you if you're in one of the states that FanDuel is legal, bet the over on every one of these games because I
there you
mean this
go.
could be like we could have like 20 to 17 games or something like that, with the score because
Yeah,
the Orioles, we've talked about how their pitching is getting better, but still very hittable. And like you said, the Braves have a really strong offense, and I think the Orioles today put up what 12 or 15, something like that. They put up a ton of runs, so
yeah.
they're it could be a really high scoring thing, and as long as you're not the Alabama head coach, you can absolutely indulge in FanDuel.
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, what'd you find?
So first game tomorrow, Freed is pitching. So I would like to see him continue. He's touting a nice solid .45 ERA on the season. I'd like to
Does
see him keep that under one.
does Max have a cool nickname? Because I feel like Freed, like I don't know, I feel like he should really have
Yeah,
like Freed eggs or something. I don't know, something like we need to get something for him.
yeah. Not that I've heard. So yeah. And then Kramer is going for the Orioles, which he's having an okay season so far. We'll see what happens
He's trying to
there.
figure it out.
Yeah. Saturday, it looks like we've got Spencer Strider. So it doesn't get much better on Saturday for the Orioles, unfortunately, going against Bradish. And then on Sunday to finish it out, Bryce Elder against Wells.
Okay. Yeah,
In
it's
that
gonna be
one.
tough.
So,
I'm bummed that Grayson's not going to get to pitch. It seems like because I think that would
yeah.
be great for him. His confidence has gotten a little bit better. He had a pretty good outing his last one, so I think him getting a chance just to see again what it's like pitching against your guys' lineup would have been cool. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, your guys' pitching staff is light years ahead of where ours is, so it's going to be a tough matchup. But I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
I hope I don't know what the weather report looks like, but I hope the weather is going to be good.
Yeah, I haven't looked out that far either,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I said, I'm not obviously, anything can happen. The Orioles are playing really well. Again, for me on the Brave side of it, 2 out of 3, just win the
Oh
series,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and
Yeah.
kind of go from there. I will say, so while you were kind of going over some of the lineup stuff, I was looking at the Orioles schedule for the month of May, and so you guys, after today's game against the Royals, you guys have 25 games left this season, the rest of this month.
Yeah.
Um, let me just read this off to you.
Yeah.
At the Braves, back home against the Rays, at home against the Pirates, at home against the Angels, on the road against the Blue Jays, on the road at the Yankees, back home against the Rangers, and then back home, staying home against the Guardians. That's literally every single, and surprisingly, the Pirates being in the middle of that, every single one of those teams could be a playoff team.
Let me get my knee
So,
pads out because I got to start praying a lot.
so that's 25 games. If you guys can come out, like you said, at 500, 13-12, it's not great, but like against that caliber of team, like that would be phenomenal.
I honestly would count that as a win, just because again, this is, and this kind of gets back to what we talked about last week a little bit with this being, the expectations are really high just because they're playing well, but in reality, this is still a building season. This is still get experience, get guys, working out the kinks. So yeah, if we could get through that kind of schedule, 500 or a little bit over that, I think that would be a huge win. And of course, without any, big injuries or anything like that. So yeah, but again, that's fun. Like even, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at this through rosy glasses, but I think most Orioles fans, even if they don't do great in the series, I think it's still just going to be fun to see who, individually who plays well, who doesn't, just kind of, really get an idea of who's sticking around and who might, be an option for a replacement.
Yeah. So the Orioles are sitting right now 21-10. If they went 13-12 over those 25 games, they'd be 34-22. There is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we would take that. Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting too. I was reading an article about could the AL East get 4 teams in the playoffs this year? Wouldn't that be nuts?
Well, they're talking about the AL East could be, and again, I need to fact check this because to me, I feel like it's been done before. But I've been hearing talks the AL East would be the first team in baseball history to have every team over 500.
That might be true, and I know the last, I think it was 1917, the last time a division had 4 teams in the playoffs like that. I think that, or something close to that. So yeah, it just goes to show you how much fun this division can be. I mean, even when you're kind of towards the bottom, it's still a lot of fun. So
yeah, well, and what's fascinating, like to that stat point, when you look at the NL East, every other division has a team that's like significantly below 500. But even the Nationals are last in the NL East, and they're 13-18. So they're only 5 games out.
Yeah,
that's by far the best last place team in any division aside from the AL East. So how ridiculous would that be if the season played out and both East divisions were like teams above 500? Like that would
they're just like, that's just going to be the playoffs. There's the AL East, NL East. That's everybody else is out. That's going to be the playoffs.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane. So, anyway, cool. Any other things looking forward to with the Orioles or anything coming up?
Well, I mean, I think we hit the Orioles. I'm curious what your thoughts are with Bryce. He came back or got back.
He did. And he's still wearing the normal like full elbow like cast brace thing. I hope it's legitimate. I hope that they're not rushing this.
Well, he didn't start off great.
No, I mean, so I don't know. I was shocked. Again, when the report came out, we talked about it last week. So go check out last week's podcast, and we'll talk about that to hear us talk more. But I thought it was kind of speculation and rumor at best, and the doctor was going to like look at him and say, "Are you freaking out of your mind?" Like, but I guess not. So he either has some of those like what they call it, like Mickey Mantle genes, where he just heals at an exponential rate. But again, I mean, that's crazy.
It could be that, and then like I think people forget like modern medicine has come so far that we have all these new like. It is surprising how some of these guys can heal so quickly, but it's also a little bit not, just because like that's kind of the way it's supposed to go. Guys should be healing faster and faster as time goes on, just because we get better at diagnosing and treating these kind of things. So so it is still really remarkable, and I would totally echo what you said, that hopefully he is actually back, and he's gonna pretty soon get back to his normal self, because that's good for baseball. I usually hate that saying, but we'll go with it because it really is. It is good for baseball if Bryce Harper is, a big name still. But I also think that this is just a trend. I think guys are going to always, they should just continue to be able to come back from things quicker and quicker as time goes on. So, Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if it's something that lingers. Does it affect him the whole year? Is this something that after a couple of weeks he's kind of back to normal? It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if he says anything about it too. Like I don't feel like I've heard much from him as far as like anything worth commenting on at least. So that'll be interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a ridiculous stat today, and I hate to do this because of our good friend Ryan being a representative of this organization for a good portion of his MLB career. But the statistic was that Bryce Harper went out with a Tommy John surgery and has returned back to baseball before an Oakland Athletics starting pitcher has a win.
I mean the Las Vegas A's? No.
Yeah. Because
that's nuts. That's crazy.
The Athletics only have 6 wins this year so far. Their starters are 0-15.
Oh my gosh!
So
I thought the Orioles had a pitching problem.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. So
yeah, that is crazy. I mean, that's one of the stats where it's like, yeah, you definitely win a bar bet with that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's the Oakland thing is just it's a mess. Where
it is.
In the one hand, it will be kind of exciting to see a team in Las Vegas, but you always hate it when a city loses a team. But
and especially Oakland, they've lost 3 franchises in 10 years. So even though there was an article going around that apparently, I guess the vote for the Vegas baseball stadium hasn't happened yet and is possibly in jeopardy. And so they're saying that if that doesn't end up passing, what are the A's going to do now?
Yeah, I think
so.
But you know what? I think obviously there's a lot of things that would have to happen, to get to that point. But I really think that they would still have a line of people calling, saying, "Hey, we'd love to have you." Because in the long run, having a team in a city, especially a city that maybe doesn't, have a lot of teams already, that's a huge deal. So so I think if things fell apart with Las Vegas, I personally, I feel like they would still end up somewhere else before they just threw in the towel and stayed in Oakland.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Which again is too bad for Oakland, but there's probably a reason that they're leaving. So
yeah, no, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do a quick division recap of just kind of what's going on. So, and then this. We might table this for next week, just given the time that we are on the podcast. But we brought this topic up last year, and what we just talked about, I think, lends to that conversation happening again. But nonetheless, so let's start in the American League, the AL East. The Tampa Bay Rays have I won't say substantial. They look like they have, based on how they're playing, a substantial lead in the AL East. They're 26-6.
That's another team that's going to be interesting to see because I think a lot of people expect them to come back to earth as well. They haven't exactly had the hardest first start to the year as well, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with them.
Yeah, I mean, bad teams or not, 26-6 to start a season's pretty stout for sure. So we'll see what continues to happen. Baltimore right on their heels, really at 21-10. Toronto 18-13. Boston 18-14, and then probably the biggest shock of the season right now, the New York Yankees in last place of their division at 17-15.
There was another stat. I wish I had written it down, but it's been since the Mastodons were on Earth that the Red Sox and the Yankees were both the bottom dwellers, last and second to last at this point in the year, or this point in the season. So that's another big one too. Is that that's kind of a historic thing that's not a small deal. So talk about a shocker.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving to the AL Central, the Minnesota Twins are leading that division 18-14. The Guardians not too far behind at 14-17. Detroit rallying off some wins here lately, 13-17. Chicago has to be one of the biggest disappointments so far this season, 10-22. And then Kansas City just seems like they're in survival mode with the A's at 8-24.
They're just putting their money behind the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They're just saying,
go
Mahomes.
No shock in that division to me. The Twins and the Guardians, I think, were going to be the two front runners to battle that division. I mean, other than, I guess, Chicago being as bad as they are, I would have thought they would have been a little bit more competitive. But the Twins and Guardians are clear division favorites in that division, in my opinion. So, And then that takes us to the AL West. The Texas Rangers lead currently 18-12. The Angels not far behind, 18-14. Houston third in that division, 16-15. Seattle 15-16, and then Oakland doing Oakland things. So I think I've said their record enough on the podcast that I don't need to keep rubbing that in. So
Yeah.
Good to see the Angels trying to compete here. For the love of God, can we get Mike Trout in the playoffs? Same thing with Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, we need to talk about that on another podcast, just kind of do a deep dive on that, because
yeah,
it really is like, I don't think people understand how crazy it is that, you have those two just absolute superstars that, can't get out of the regular season. It's crazy.
I mean, it's literally like, this is going to sound probably preposterous, but it's literally the equivalent of if Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan never made it to the playoffs with the Bulls.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're both that good. So anyway, so I would say probably surprise of that division, Angels holding steady, and then Houston, kind of stumbling out of the gate.
Yeah.
That's the World Series hangover that everybody talks about. So, there it is.
I don't know. I still feel like they're going to figure it out.
I do too. They're a good team. Good team. So that takes us over to the National League now. So NL East, Braves leading that division at 22-10. Marlins and Mets tied for second at 16-16. The Phillies at 15-17, and then Washington rounding it out 13-18. I cannot tell you how happy it makes me the Braves having a 6-game lead in this division so far this year. This is the first year in a long time the Braves have kind of started a season out pretty strong. And so I'm loving it. I'm wanting the momentum to continue, and let's see what happens. So that takes us to the NL Central. The Pittsburgh Pirates leading the division at 20-12. Followed by the Milwaukee Brewers at 18-13. The Chicago Cubs, sorry, I almost said White Sox, and I was like, that's the wrong league. Chicago Cubs 15-16. Cincinnati 13-18. Biggest shock, well, as equally shocking as the Pirates winning this division is the St. Louis Cardinals being 10-22 and at the bottom of that division. Did Yadier Molina have this big of an impact on that team, or what's happening here?
I don't know. It literally is backwards. Like, if you wrote this out at the beginning of the year, people would be like, no, you got to turn the paper upside down. So it just, it doesn't make sense. I still feel like the Cardinals are one of those teams like that they're going to just kind of slowly start to win games. And then at the end of the year, right before the playoffs, they're going to be like, 1 or 2 games within, spit distance and just kind of figure it out. So I still believe that they're gonna figure, but maybe Yadier, maybe he had that big of an impact. I don't know. But that's going to be a really fun division to watch. I think that's going to be definitely one of the races and just kind of standings to see how, as the season goes on, what happens there is going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think before we move on, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how cool it was, the Pirates pulling up Drew Maggi. And him being able to make his major league debut after spending, I think it was 13 seasons in the minor leagues. Well, I say debut. He had been pulled up a few times by the Twins and I want to say the Pirates, but he never played in a game. He just was on the roster. So this was the first time he actually got an at-bat, got into a game. Really cool story. He did unfortunately get optioned back this week, so he is not with them. But, hey, for the rest of his life, he can say he's a Major League Baseball player, and that's pretty cool. So, so shout out to them. I think that was a really cool gesture. If I had to guess, they probably had a younger guy they probably could have brought up and maybe given that moment to, but I think well-deserved, and he took advantage of it. He had a good week up there. So kudos to him.
They did the right thing as an organization. That was good.
So last but not least, heading into the NL West, not too much surprise here, I would say. Dodgers winning the division right now, 19-13. Diamondbacks 17-14. Padres 17-15. The Giants 13-17, and then Colorado rounding it out at 12-20. I would say maybe the Padres not being as good of a team.
I was going to say, I mean, like that's mine. Because actually, it's still early. I still think that San Diego is gonna be really strong. But I'm actually a little surprised that they're third in the division.
Yeah. I was talking with somebody the other day at my office. You want to hear one of the more confusing career trajectories that I've seen in a very long time? When's the last time you saw a headline, an article, anything written about Chris Bryant?
Good call. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
guy,
he was a huge deal in Chicago, and then
he
yeah.
was a rookie phenom, couldn't
Hmm.
wait for him to come up, wins the World Series with the Cubs. He gets to his free agent contract, chooses strictly, I can only say for the money, to go to Colorado, and you have not heard anything about him since he signed that contract.
I thought you were gonna go with Juan Soto,
I mean,
because
weird too, but
yeah, not as bad as Chris Bryant, but just one of those guys that was just like, man, he was when he was with the Nationals, he seemed like he might be the next face of baseball, and now he's not even really the leader on his team. But yeah, I mean that's nuts. I think of most people, if you asked them where does Chris Bryant play, they wouldn't have been able to tell you.
exactly. I couldn't even. I had this conversation with someone in the office and still never went to look up what his statistics were. I couldn't tell you how he's playing. Like,
Yeah,
so
where
it's
is he
crazy.
playing?
Exactly. Is he just chilling on a ranch in Colorado? Just not play. For all I know, he
Yeah.
could be. So anyway, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's crazy. Now he's still young, so again, he's one of those guys that maybe like, maybe this is just a kind of a rut, and he jumps back up maybe in the right location. But yeah, he's that's a really good call. That's a guy that yeah, I think when he was with the Cubs, everybody would have thought he would be one of those kind of top 10 guys almost.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. Just fell off the face of the earth. So,
Yeah.
um, we're running a little bit long. I had the last note on here to go over our podcast season picks, but again, we don't
We can
have
do it
too
next
many
week if you
guys,
want
so
to.
yeah, we might punt that to next week. Just maybe we'll get a few more guys on, but we want to get them out there for you. We've got division picks, we've got pennant picks for the World Series, and then we'll also share who we think are going to win the World Series, and kind of take it from there. I will say, very fascinating. The division winners we kind of did have a little bit all over the place in some of them. Some of them we did not. There seemed to be a pretty consistent World Series and pennant pick from the podcast. So
Shocker.
we'll leave that teaser out there for a couple weeks. But no, so we'll plan to share those with everyone next week, and we'll tee that up then. Who says you can't do season predictors in May? So
Yeah, we did get him in early though. It's not like we're making
yeah,
this up as we
yeah,
go. So I think when people see mine, they'll understand. They'll be like, oh yeah, that definitely didn't happen right now. So
yeah, absolutely. So. All right. Well, that brings us to the last segment that we always end the show with. That's last words. So, you got any last
let's
comments that we didn't talk
let's
about?
just get excited for Braves Orioles. I'm really am excited about it. I think it's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of fun. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on in sports right now with the Carolina Hurricanes are playing well for us from North Carolina, and we've got the obviously the NBA playoffs I think are really interesting. But yeah, I mean it's good. That's going to be a really fun time to watch that series and see what happens. And yeah, just kind of as we get closer to summer, which is crazy to say, but things are going to really start to heat up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would say I echo all of those comments, Barrick. I think that was a great roundup. It's an exciting time of the year. Weather's starting to warm up for most of us. Hopefully, we chatted a little bit last week. Your golf courses aren't quite ready up there, but hopefully they will be soon. We'll get some good golf in. Speaking of North Carolina, just being on the map right now, we got the Wells Fargo Championship down in Quail Hollow happening this weekend as well. So, yeah, there's good sports to be had all over the place. And I got to tell you, I think one of the better matchups to pay attention to in baseball this weekend is the Braves Orioles matchup. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So
Yeah, it's gonna be one that especially this time of year, there may not be a lot of people sitting down and actually watching like a full series, but I'm gonna be locked in, and it's gonna be fun just to kind of sit down and really watch this baseball game and go or series and go through it. I think we also need to give a shout out to the East Forsyth baseball team, and just they've
yep.
they've done Drew's done a really good job, and they're getting some really nice recognition both statewide and national. So I think
Absolutely.
that's if anybody's looking to watch or follow some high school baseball, it's a good place to start.
100%. Yep, getting ready to start their high school baseball playoffs and all that fun stuff. So yeah, wishing them and the boys the best of luck. We'll be rooting for you from afar. Alumni always got to represent well. So awesome. Well, Barrick, it's been fun. Always a pleasure to hop on here and chat with you. Again, for those of you listening, we appreciate your time. If you would, on our YouTube channel here, make sure you like the video, give us a subscription. Helps us a lot, and we appreciate coming and making time for you. Again, I'll put it here on the screen. Feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Contact at first2thirdpod.com. That's again, contact at first, the number 2, and then thirdpod.com. Also give us a follow over on our socials, Instagram, Twitter. We like to engage with everyone we can there. And with that, we'll sign off for now, and we'll catch you for season 2, episode 3 next week.
May the 4th be with you.
That's right. That's a great full circle moment there, bud. All right. Y'all be good.